It's June 26, Ukraine Media Center Ukrinform starts its operation. My name is Svetlana, and now we will be talking about mobilization progress and demobilization legislation. Joining us online is Fedir Venislavskyi, People's Deputy of Ukraine, member of the Parliamentary Committee on National Security, Defense and Intelligence. Good morning, Mr. Fedir. Good morning. Glory to Ukraine. Glory to the heroes. So the mobilization progress has intensified. So what is it like right now, and is it in line with the expectations of the government? Well, as the legislation has come into force, the legislation on improvement on the legislation on mobilization, so the progress of mobilization allows us to have a positive outlook on the pace of implementation of this law, and it's in line with the expectation of the General Staff, Ministry of Defense, and the government of Ukraine. We've achieved the key goal that we vested into this legislation to audit all of the citizens of Ukraine of the conscription age who has a right to postponement, who can be booked and who can be mobilized. And again, the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine keeps monitoring the situation with the update of the personal data of citizens of Ukraine, of male citizens of Ukraine of conscription age, and dynamics is quite positive. As of this morning, I got the information from Ms. Chernohorenko, Deputy Minister of Defense. The personal details were updated by 2,370,000 citizens of Ukraine. And it's important to mention that the majority was using the Reserve Plus application. In the second place are the Centers for Administrative Services and the draft and conscription offices. So basically, I think that generally the law fulfilled its task, its mission, for which it was adopted. Well, digitalization definitely facilitates a lot of processes, and a lot of people are curious whether Reserve Plus will be added with the digital draft notices shortly. Do you have any comments on that? Well, when the draft law was reviewed in our parliamentary committee, we were discussing all the sensitive issues within a couple of months, and one of those issues was an option of sending the draft notices through electronic means of communication. And it was decided that it's premature. Well, not even premature, but generally it's not up to review, not subject to review. And thanks to the removal of this option, we've received the support of all the political forces in the parliament. And this is why the position of the committee and the Ministry of Defense and the Commander-in-Chief is such that the electronic draft notices cannot exist so far, given that there are still no amendments to the law on mobilization and mobilization preparation and other government registers. But talking about the plans to amend such laws that would contemplate using electronic means of communication for sending of the draft notices still do not exist. Well, in view of mobilization progress, the queues to conscription offices keep growing. What are the ways to solve these problems? Well, so far I cannot agree with that fact that the queues are growing, the lines are growing, but the statistics show that the most of the citizens show that the majority uses the Reserve Plus application, and I would like to urge all of the citizens of Ukraine not to trust in those myths that updating information through Reserve Plus is somehow different from updating your personal details through conscription offices or centers for administrative services, because I ended up in the situation just recently. I was talking to a citizen who was telling me that there are gossips that people should not update their personal details through Reserve Plus because that information is getting lost or something goes wrong. So again, that's misinformation that is successfully used by the enemy, who tries to discredit the idea of updating the personal details through Reserve Plus application. And I personally see no problem about it. And all of the citizens of Ukraine can promptly use this opportunity. I personally updated my personal details quite quickly. It took me like a dozen of minutes. I downloaded the application. I entered all the necessary details. I got authorized with my electronic signature, and probably within 30 or 40 minutes I got the notification about the update of my personal data with QR code and barcode generated. So I cannot confirm any information about the lines in front of the conscription offices. Yes, this problem existed in Kiev previously, but according to the information from Ministry of Defense, and we keep track of this issue, we are in constant touch with them, so such problem is not observed elsewhere in Ukraine so far. So the Ministry of Defense has supported, but later has withdrawn its support of the draft law to extend the term of the period of update of personal data up to 150 days. Why did it happen just like this? Well, I cannot comment the actions of the Ministry of Defense in these sensitive issues, but again, the dynamics that we observe in terms of updating the personal details is quite positive. Last month, it's been 1 month and 8 days since the law has come into force, and since that time 2,370,000 male citizens of Ukraine of conscription age have updated their personal data, as I've already mentioned. So I think that as soon as the fear of Reserve Plus goes away, I think the dynamic can even increase, because the capacity of the application allows to process way more requests coming from the citizens. So in my opinion, the extension of this 60 days term for update of the personal details, I think is not necessary, given the fact that there are 20 more days within which all those who wish can update their personal details through personal means of communication. Well, we have a question from the journalist from Channel 5. Is it true that the males above 25 years who were previously recognized as those who are not quite unfit for military service can be recognized as fit? Well, those are now being recognized fit who could be unfit for military service during peacetime. So those who have no legal grounds for postponement and due to their health conditions cannot fulfill any tasks in military service. But again, as soon as such person could be recognized as such with limited capacity to perform military duties, they were issued the military ID with identification of their military profession and rank, and such citizens of Ukraine were recognized. Well, they were switching the category from the recruits to those fit for military service, and now we've canceled this status of person who have limited capacity to perform military duties, because it was created, this category was creating corruption risks, and some of those citizens who were falling under this category due to their medical and health conditions, in case they can be recognized as those fit for military service, now they can be mobilized. There are relevant draft laws registered with the parliament. Again, there is an issue with social justice here, like people of the same age can be subject to conscription. Meanwhile, others are not. I think that the Parliament will review all the proposals, and we will adopt the relevant decision. So the draft law on demobilization was the progress on that. It's the matter of the full responsibility of the Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine, and I would like to emphasize when we were reviewing this draft law on the stage of finalization, there was a request coming from the Minister of Defense of Ukraine and the Prime Minister of Ukraine, who requested to remove all those provisions related to demobilization in the law that was previously adopted, and the Parliament of Ukraine decided to develop the criteria, the eligibility criteria for demobilization of certain categories of servicemen who spend certain time in the front lines. And currently, the Parliament of Ukraine has not received any legislative initiatives from the Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine, so I recommend to address this issue with the Minister of Defense of Ukraine so they state their position. We have questions on the floor, please.
Randall Stevenson from The Economist magazine. I had a question not about registration, but about drafting itself. The mechanism used to be that somebody would have to sign for a draft letter in person technically. That was not working very well, so people were being taken off the street. That's still happening a lot. What mechanism should be happening, and what are the criteria, if any, for people being targeted by recruiters on the street?
Well, as we were adopting this legislation, we were discussing the mechanism of notification of the citizens to summon them to the conscription offices, to be forwarded to medical examination or training centers. So those issues are regulated by relevant legislation, and the law identifies the clear framework that the draft notice should contain either electronic or live or written signature of a person who issued the draft notice, and it should be directly handed against the signature of a citizen of Ukraine. And again, all of the male citizens of the conscription age, according to the law, are supposed to have their military registration ID on them. And while I did check by the representatives of the National Police of Ukraine, in coordination with the representatives of the draft office, it would be identified that if a male citizen is supposed to be summoned to the conscription offices, such people may be still issued a notice against signature. Thank you very much, Mr. Fedir. We were discussing the progress of mobilization with Mr. Fedir Venislavskyi, and Ukraine Media Center Ukrinform will continue its operation in 15 minutes. At 11 o'clock, we will be talking about revamping of housing policy as a part of Ukraine Facility Initiative. Stay tuned.